Welcome to Crafty Little Beach. This is Julie. Today I have a Dollar Tree DIY for you.
Okay, look at this little spring gnome they had in the garden section. They also had these little fence post signs, which are super cute. I totally bought it for the fence post though, not for the existing design. I'm going to keep this little galvanized metal flower pot though, and the little flowers, they were so easy to pop off. And then it left me with a little fence sign. I think it's going to be perfect. I'm just going to go ahead and leave the hanger on the back and just repaint the sign to cover up the flowers that were on there to kind of give me a plain base because I want my little garden gnome to be standing in front of this white picket fence. Nothing screams like a yard like a white picket fence. So I am just going over with white. I do a coat over the flowers first to kind of give a primer so that won't shine through. And then I go over all of it with just white acrylic. Don't worry about covering up the lines when you're painting this because you can always kind of add those back on. I thought about cutting it down to kind of make some grooves in there, but I decided to just go with a Sharpie. It kind of worked. I was using a goldish brown color and my ruler and trying to draw those back on. The sign was a little bit taller, but we're going to make it work. And so it's okay if it looks a little distressed. Just going to make it look a little bit more like wood. Now, it was a little too white and pristine for my style, so I'm going to go over with some Antique Wax by Waverly and a chunky brush and just working in one direction, distressing, making sure I get the tops and the bottom of each one and distressing lightly all over. Then I'm going to go back with a baby wipe and wipe off the excess, kind of rubbing that in, kind of giving it a weathered, worn looking fence. Totally goes more with my coastal farmhouse vibe in my house. But you can leave yours pristine white if you'd like. And now it's time to decorate this cute little garden gnome holding a flower. I'm gonna just remove the hanger at the top and we're gonna paint everything under the burlap with white. Acrylic just to give us a nice base coat and we can add some colors to that. I like that they added the burlap to the hat, but I almost don't like it because I had to paint around it and try to make sure that I don't get any paint on the burlap. I may have wanted to just add that myself. Not really sure why they chose to do that, but I'm not going to worry about the hat right now. I've got a plan for that. So everything just under the hat is what we're painting. So I decided that that salmon color would be really cute for a little pink nose for our gnome. So just using a small brush, I go over that. And these are the raised wood pieces on there, so it's kind of easy to paint that. And then I take a tiny brush and I'm just going to kind of do his clothes in that color as well. As you can see, he doesn't have a lot of clothes, but he does have a little bit of clothes underneath of his beard here, and I kind of wanted those to be a contrasting color. Now for his little mittens and boots, I thought we would do that light turquoise color, so mixing turquoise and white together again. I'm just going to simply go over all of those, kind of leaving the white border around. As you can see, there's a little line, just kind of trying to paint within the lines. And then I decided to clean it up a little bit with a Sharpie, just to kind of go over my lines. I did have a similar color, but this step's totally optional. Now it's time for the little gnome hat. I have this fabric left over from another spring DIY. I got this at Dollar Tree, and I love that this is going to coordinate with my little watering can DIY that I made with this. So I just draw out on the back of it how big the little gnome hat is, and then use that little Sharpie line to cut out my fabric. I love this fabric. I think it's so pretty for spring, and the colors are perfect for my color scheme. So we have a little gnome hat. I'm not going to worry about the little hole that was on there for the hanger. You'll never be able to see it. Now for the top part of the hat, it's a little bit more complex. I just laid it over that burlap part and kind of felt with my finger and used an ink pen to kind of draw that on so I didn't know exactly where to cut that. And that actually worked out pretty well because that's kind of a weird cut that I had to do there. Isn't that cute? I love this little gnome. And you'll see that I left the flower white. I do have plans for that. That was kind of my inspiration for a flower there. But since I'm using like fabric, I'm going to do like a thick layer of matte Mod Podge from the Dollar Tree. And just simply lay that fabric on top, trying to get it lined up the best that I can so that like no wood is exposed. And it did pretty good without doing any fraying or anything like that along the sides. But if you have a little bit, I think it's going to be fine. And just trying to smooth that out, making sure it goes all the way up to like the burlap part of the sign. I think he's looking really cute. And so this is what I had planned. I have used this flower in another DIY, and I think it's so pretty. And so I'm going to use one for this. The color is perfect. I want to trim this down a little bit, but not so much that it makes the flower fall apart. And then I'm just going to put it on top of the white flower that he already has there. If you wanted, you could drill a hole into that and kind of put the flower down into it. I really wasn't wanting to drill a hole in them, so I just kind of glue it on there. And then I don't really want like the white flower to be exposed, so I kind of like glue the petals down and it kind of covers it up. This is kind of like the perfect size for this gnome to be holding. And then I do the same thing at the top there, just kind of gluing it all down and arranging it like that. Now we can attach our little garden gnome to our fence. I kind of want it to look like he's standing like in a yard. And so I'm going to kind of put him up a little bit from the bottom and then use some reindeer moss for like our garden ground that's going to be like in front of the fence. So the first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and take the tag off the back and glue him down. I used like the moss at the bottom for grass like that in some of my spring DIYs last year. I think it turned out really cute. And I remember doing that, so I thought I would want to do that with this one as well. And I decided not to really add any like bows or words to that, but you totally could if you wanted to. You could spell out spring or bloom or something like that along the sides. That'd be really cute. And then just using hot glue, I am just gluing down the reindeer moss, trying to keep kind of just one row of it to kind of make it look like grass. And if you get too much or if it's like hanging over the bottom, don't worry, you can always trim that up later once you get it all glued down. Just trying to glue in any bald places here with that. I think that looks pretty good. So I'm just going to trim up the bottom, just clean it up a little bit. And we have our little garden gnome. You guys know I love my gnome, so I was really happy to be able to do a couple of gnome projects today because we had the gnome in the fairy garden as well.
And this is how it turned out. My little spring gnome. I absolutely love that fabric and the little burlap detail on there as well. It is so cute. And I love like the pink and the blue together. Really a fun little DIY to bring a little spring into your home this year. I really hope you got tons of spring crafting inspiration